Namaskar, hello and a very warm welcome to CIET NCERT's special live phone-in program which has been brought to you by NCSL, that is National Center for School Leadership. My name is Tanvi Khurana and this entire series is based on school leadership development. Our today's topic is leading innovations in school administration. If you have any questions, any queries, please feel free to reach out to us. You can give us a call on our number which is 8800440559. You're watching us at this moment on PMeVIDYA channel number 6, channel number 9 and channel number 12, and also on our YouTube channel which is NCERT Official. In the live chat box of our channel, you can write down your questions and submit it to us. So there are various mediums through which you can get in touch with us, ask your questions, and we have an expert with us. She's in our studio and she'll be more than happy to answer all your doubts. Let me introduce her to all of you. She is Dr. V. Sucharita. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Namaskar.
Ma'am is an assistant professor from Department of Educational Administration, NIEPA. And she'll be answering all your questions like I said. So let's just begin this discussion and let's just ask her the first and basic question which is based on the title of this entire session.
Right.
Ma'am, what is the importance of innovations in school administration?
Innovations remain extremely crucial and their significance is undeniable. Whether we talk about be it in any sector, be it in public sector or be it in private sector. So they are very, very crucial in improving any system. Now, within the context of education, if we have to understand the significance of innovations, we need to understand what is the current scenario and why innovations are important in the current scenario of school education. If we trace the trajectory of school education over the past few decades, there have been many programs and many schemes which have been implemented starting from the decade of 90s, DPEP, which is the District Primary Education Program, and then we have Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan in the decade of 2000. Then we have RMSA, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan for the secondary education. And now all of these are integrated into one scheme which is Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. And all these schemes, we call it as centrally sponsored schemes. So through all these schemes and also one of the landmark legislations in education which is the Right to Education Act, which was enacted in 2010, which entirely shifted the approach towards rights-based education. Now, through these centrally sponsored schemes, there have been a lot of inputs and there have been massive physical expansion of schools, because of which there has been a lot of improvement in access as well as participation of students in every nook and corner of the country. So many primary schools were established and many primary schools were upgraded and many new schools were established in both urban, rural and also in tribal areas. So because of all this, there has been a lot of improvement in access and participation of students. However, amidst all this, quality of education remained a major concern. Quality remained a major concern in this entire scenario, and because of several issues, it may be related to infrastructure, like schools in rural and in tribal areas, the infrastructure many a times, it is not up to the mark, it is not satisfactory. The issues may also be related to human resources. There may be lack of teachers, high pupil-teacher ratio, and also many a times accountability remains one major concern. So because of all these issues, there has not been much improvement in quality of education. Because of this, the learning levels continue to remain unsatisfactory. quite often we read reports that students in these particular schools, in government schools, they are not performing very well depending on their grades. So access is not directly proportional to the quality of education. So gradually what happened, because there has not been much improvement in quality, there has been a gradual rise in the enrollment in private schools. Now here when I am talking about the private schools, there are different types of private schools which I am referring to. There are high fee charging private schools which exclusively caters to the upper classes, and there are schools which caters to the middle classes, and then there are also low fee private schools which are exclusively catering to the people who are belonging to the lower socioeconomic strata. Now, we have seen from our experience and interacting with different stakeholders, we have often noticed that even if they have little bit of affordability, they are shifting their children to these low fee private schools, because somewhere they assume that the quality in these low fee private schools is superior to the government schools. So in this entire scenario, there is a need to reinstate the faith in the existing government system. We need to reaffirm the trust of the parents and reinstate the faith, and also this can be done through adequate emphasis on quality of education. So apart from focus on quality, how are we going to do this? One, we need to strengthen the existing processes within the system, and secondly, we need to focus on micro level innovative interventions. So at this juncture, micro level innovative interventions are the need of the hour.
Okay, so thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very detailed and comprehensive picture of the scenario of the school education, and with the slide you showed, it was a lot more better understood. So let's just talk further, and I would like to ask you that how are innovations perceived in particularly school administration?
Okay. This is a tricky question because we often use the term innovation, but there is no general agreement on what exactly is innovation. So the term is quite elusive, and it is often debated on what constitutes an innovation. However, here I would like to mention that of course it is a catchphrase, it is a buzzword in any sector, in different domains as well, be it in the domain of health, be it in the domain of agriculture, and of course education is not an exception to this. So it is a buzzword in every domain, and also in both public sector as well as in private sector. But as I was mentioning, that the term is quite elusive and it is very difficult to define what is innovation. However, there are general agreement to some of the key aspects of innovation. One common aspect which everyone usually agree is that it requires change in the existing system. Change that is here, of course, I am mentioning about the positive change within the system and a departure from the existing practice. Apart from this, it is also introducing something new so that it positively contributes in the overall functioning of the system. So these two are the basic parameters when we are looking at an innovation in any sector. Here particularly I am not talking about the education sector, I am giving a general idea of how we are perceiving innovation. And again, it can be applied to creation of new products, processes or services, and it can happen at all levels in the organization. It is not that innovations take place only at the topmost level of the organization, but it is at the all levels, even at the level of the institution, at the level of the individual as well. So these are the basic premise on which various innovative interventions are based. Now again, here I would like to give a picture of innovations within the context of education. Okay. Now, when we are talking about innovations within the context of educational governance, within educational governance, we often view innovations as an important tool to improve educational governance. Now here, when I am talking about educational governance, it is often characterized by increased transparency, increased accountability, efficiency, participation, and also equitable governance. So these are the basic tenets to which we usually understand when we are talking about good governance. So here we are basically viewing that innovations as an important tool for improving educational governance. Now, if I have to give you a picture of innovations within school administration, because that is what this entire talk is based on. Now, within India, if we look at the administrative machinery in our school education, there are administrators posted at the state level, at the district level, and at the sub-district level. District level, we often refer to them as district education officers, and at the block level, block education officers, and at the school level, even school headmasters. We refer all of them as the leaders of their particular district, their particular block, or their particular schools. We always envision them as leaders and those who can bring positive changes within the system. Now, if you look at the roles and responsibilities of these administrators, those who are at the state level, at the district level, and at the sub-district level, that is the block level, they often work within the broader framework of well-defined rules and procedures. Now, here, since they are working within a well-defined rules and procedures, quite often we may have this feeling that it is difficult to innovate, because many a times when we are external to the system and when we work parallelly within the system, we feel that it is quite easier, relatively easier to introduce an innovation within the system when we are external to it. But it is a challenge when we are working within the system and we are trying to introduce change. So here, when we are talking that the administrators are working within the broader framework of well-defined rules and procedures, we are in no way undermining the existing rules and procedures, but in what ways, what additional ways these administrators can bring in positive changes and can bring in innovative practices so that the efficiency of the system can be improved. Now, we have been interacting with many of these administrators over the years, and through these experiences, we have come to know that they have varied roles and responsibilities. Now, these district level officers and also the block level officers, they are, we say, the linchpins of their particular district and block. So they have varied roles and responsibilities, and within this workload and their responsibilities, many a times it becomes a challenge to initiate and sustain change. So the challenge here is to bring change within the system and to sustain the change, and it requires thinking innovatively, be it at the district level, at the block level, or at the institutional level. One need to think innovatively and accomplishing the task through new methods and strategies within the existing and within the broader framework of rules and regulations which are existing within the system.
Okay, okay. So, ma'am, given this scenario, if the administrator is introducing a change within the system, are there any particular parameters which should be considered for a new idea, to be an innovation in education?
Okay, here I would not, the parameters are very broad.
Okay.
Okay. Instead of parameters, I would say there are some basic prerequisites of any innovation, particularly when we are talking about innovations in education. There are certain prerequisites of initiating and sustaining an innovation. The first and foremost prerequisite, I would say, is that the innovation should be novel. It should be something new which we are trying to introduce within the system, and then also it should contribute positively to the system. Like I was mentioning in the beginning, it should be a welcome departure, a positive departure of what was being done previously and how the present innovation is going to improve the overall functioning of the system. A very important prerequisite of any innovation is the uniqueness. In fact, uniqueness is something which also differentiates an innovation with a change, because quite often innovation and change, they are used interchangeably. So uniqueness is one important prerequisite of any innovation. Whatever we are introducing, any new idea, if we are trying to bring in within the system, it should be unique in approach. Then sustainability of the innovation is again another major prerequisite, because quite often within school administration, officers are posted from one district to another district. So if an officer has initiated an innovation and if the officer is posted somewhere else, then even if the officer is posted somewhere else, it should be sustainable within the district. So sustainability is one important prerequisite. Also replicability is again another important prerequisite of any innovation, because it should not be just localized in one particular area, but in similar contexts it should be replicated in other areas as well. And finally, when we are talking about innovations, it is not just about a major change within the system. We are taking into account both incremental change as well as the radical changes. Incremental changes in the sense the small changes which we are trying to introduce within the system, and also the radical changes through which there will be a complete transformation of the system. So these are the basic prerequisites of any innovation. Now, when we are planning to introduce any innovation within the system, there are also certain factors which will be conducive for the implementation of any change within the system. First and foremost, and a very important factor, is the effective leadership. Be it at the district level, the district education officer, at the block level, the block education officer, and at the institutional level, who are the school heads. And as I was mentioning earlier also, that we always envision them as the leaders of their particular district, block, or at the institutional level. So effective leadership is very, very important. The leader should be a visionary. Leaders should communicate very clearly to all the stakeholders, and the leader should have good problem solving skills, and the leader should also have good analysis of the existing situation and correctly diagnosing what is the problem and what can be the possible solution. So these are the basic tenets of an effective leadership. Now the second factor which is very favorable when we are implementing any innovation is we require a self-motivated team. Now when here I am talking about self-motivated team, it should be the involvement of all the stakeholders, be it teachers, be it parents, students, community members, because community participation is extremely significant when we are implementing any innovation within the system. So a self-motivated team is again one major factor for any innovation to be successful. Then availability of necessary resources, be it in the form of physical resources or human resources or financial resources or IT related resources. These resources are very important, and also optimal use of the existing resources. So these are also extremely important and very, very conducive when we are trying to implement innovation. Also, the ability to carry out the correct diagnosis of the problem. For instance, if there is a district level education officer or a block level education officer, and within the officer's purview, if suppose there is a decline in the enrollment, and if suppose there is a continuous increase in the dropout of the students, so here only the DEO or the BEO need to correctly analyze why is it that there is a constant decline in the enrollment and high dropping out of students from the schools. So here there need to be a correct diagnosis of the existing problem, and often it is always good to undertake a SWOT analysis of the situation. That is to understand whenever we are trying to implement any innovation, to understand what could be the possible strengths of this particular innovation, what can be the weaknesses if suppose we are introducing this, and what are the possible opportunities and what challenges might come during the process of in implementation of the innovation. So a correct diagnosis of the problem and coming out with optimal solution is the key, and if the diagnosis is correct, then many a times it leads to a successful implementation of the innovation. And finally, the most important aspect in any innovation is the change prone attitude. And this is extremely important because many a times one of the major hindrance, I would say, is that we often resist change because we prefer to maintain status quo, and many a times we try to resist the change thinking that in no way this is going to benefit us. So resistance is something which is quite common, and people usually they do not want to change. So here a change prone attitude first and foremost of the leader, that is very, very important, and if the leader is having a change prone attitude, then that is a very significant and a very crucial conducive factor for implementing any innovation.
Okay. So we have just understood the prerequisites of an innovation and also the factors conducive to innovation. So with this, I would like to ask you that there aren't all areas which are open or which are ready for the introduction of innovations.
Right.
So would you like to highlight those possible areas where innovation can actually be introduced?
Right. In fact, there are several areas wherein within school administration and school administration in particular and school education in general, where innovations can be introduced. The first and foremost area is bringing transparency within educational governance. Now, as I was mentioning in the beginning as well, that when we are talking about good governance, there is a need for increased transparency, increased accountability, and increased participation of all stakeholders. So, increased transparency and accountability in educational governance is one of the major and possible areas of innovation. Apart from this, there is also one area which is effective monitoring and supervision. Now, when we are talking about monitoring and supervision within educational administration, this is a very important aspect to improve the quality of education. And if the monitoring and supervision is better, and if it is taking place regularly, it greatly enhances the quality of education in the schools. So this is one possible area wherein officers can innovate. Apart from this, there is also one major area which is improving schools and students' performance, because with increased emphasis in quality, there has been lot of stress on how to improve the learning outcomes of the children. Again, if we look at the trajectory, like I was mentioning in the beginning, that there has been lot of improvement in access, but the quality remains a major concern. Now, with the shift, there has been a gradual shift from input-based approach to outcome-based education. And also, if you look at the recent Sustainable Development Goals, especially Sustainable Development Goal 4, which talks about ensuring equitable and quality education for all the children. So quality is something which is extremely significant. And also recent NEP 2020, the New Education Policy 2020 also lays lot of emphasis on quality of education and learning outcomes of the students. So this is again another significant area wherein individuals can innovate. Apart from this, another important area is the teacher management. Now, when we are talking about teacher management, here we are basically referring to the optimal use of teachers, the academic support, the teacher motivation, and also we often hear about teachers' transfer policy, how there can be positive changes in the transfer policy and rationalization of teachers. So, teacher management is also another important area, focus area of innovation. Community support and ownership is again one very extremely significant area. We have seen many cases wherein there has been a lot of improvement in the functioning of the schools when there is active involvement of the community members, be it the SMCs, or I will be discussing more cases also eventually. So community support and active participation of community members is again one important area of innovation. Apart from this, there is enhancing equity and participation in schools. Here we are talking about participation of all children, irrespective of the caste, class, gender, ethnicity, so on and so forth. So that is again how the officers are ensuring equity within the school education. That is again another major area wherein one can innovate. Apart from this, use of ICT in governance, there has been a lot of IT-related interventions within the school education system, and this has really increased the transparency and accountability within the system. So ICT in governance, we usually call it as e-governance initiatives. So there have been lot of initiatives across the states from different nook and corner of the country, wherein these e-governance initiatives have really improved the overall functioning of the system. So this is again one major focus area of the, if an officer wants to introduce innovations. So these are some of the areas. Now again, the list is endless. And whatever I have mentioned here, these are indicative.
Right.
And it is up to the officer in which area the officer wants to innovate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've clarified that there are various areas, possible areas where innovation is actually possible.
Right.
And we can introduce it.
Right.
Okay. So keeping that in mind, would you like to share some examples, for the better understanding of our viewers?
Definitely. I would love to do that, because we have been working with these administrators who are posted at the district level and at the block level, and every year we get to know a lot of cases who have been working in these areas, and I would like to give few examples. But again, as because time is a constraint here, so I may not be able to go in detail of each and every case, but very quickly I would like to give few examples. For instance, there has been one very interesting case on translating textbooks in mother tongue. Now, particularly if I am talking about children, tribal children here, their language has always been one major concern. And we often say that the language which a tribal child speaks at home is entirely different from the language which is being spoken at school. So because of this language, there has always been a home school incongruence which a tribal child experiences every day. So there was this officer who took initiative and who got translation of textbooks in tribal languages. Of course, in two states, that is the state of Odisha and the state of Andhra Pradesh, this was implemented before also, and it was called as multilingual education program. But apart from these two states, officers at their own individual level, they have undertaken this innovative case of translating textbooks in mother tongue. And also several e-governance initiatives, like I was mentioning, like up-to-date service, up-to-date record of the service books. This has been one interesting case which we again got from one state, and also tracking of teachers' leave, because many a times teachers were not aware how many leaves they were having, or timely disbursement of pensions. That was also another interesting case which we have come to know. Also, grievance redressal system, transparent grievance redressal system. So these are some of the e-governance initiatives which we have been coming across from different nooks and corners of the country. Now, there were many initiatives for increased participation of girls, tribals, children with disability and other disadvantaged groups. For instance, I can remember the case of Kerala, wherein one officer at his own individual level, the officer has taken an initiative of taking the library to the children's home, children who were having some sort of disability and who were not able to visit schools regularly. So a home library was set up in those children's houses, so that they can have easy access to the books and other study materials. I also remember one case from Maharashtra, since we are talking about equity in education. One case from Maharashtra I remember, wherein the officer again took initiative of improving the participation of girls, because in this particular district the sex ratio was very low, and parents were not sending girls to the schools regularly. So the officer took several initiatives to increase the participation of girls in the schools. So this is again another important area where there have been many innovations. Apart from this, there have also been innovations within the area of monitoring and supervision. I also remember several innovations within the area of monitoring and supervision, and how officers have used IT as an important tool to improve the supervision process. Apart from this, one very interesting case I remember of children's constituency at the block level, wherein this officer has come up with an idea of Bal Sansad, so that there can be more and more awareness of the voting process. So this was again one interesting initiative. Then kitchen garden.
Ma'am, these examples are actually wonderful. They're sounding very innovative, and the work has been done on all levels.
All levels,
for
definitely.
this.
Yes.
But like you said, we have time constraint, and we have got last 2 minutes left for this conversation. So would you like just wrap up?
Yeah. So I would like to mention that all the officers are working very innovatively at their own district, block and institutional levels. Now, since we have been interacting with all these officers, we thought that there should be a common platform wherein the efforts of these officers need to be recognized, and also a broader dissemination of these innovative practices across the country. So in this direction, NIEPA has initiated national awards for innovations and good practices in educational administration. We started this in 2014, and since then we have been receiving overwhelming response.
Wow.
And every year we get lot of new cases, and this is a great learning for us as well, because there have been many wonderful grassroots level innovative interventions which are taking place across the country. So the basic premise of this particular scheme is to recognize the good efforts which these officers are doing, and another important aspect is that every innovation need to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
It is not that the innovation is localized and confined to a particular district or a particular block. So I would like to sum up by saying that every innovation need to have a ripple effect, so that it spreads outwards. It spreads outwards and it is replicated in different districts across the country, in all the corners. So I would like to conclude here, and I hope that through this talk there are many officers who are motivated to introduce innovations in their particular place, in their respective place, and also they become an important change agents to bring positive changes within the society.
Absolutely. It was not just an eye-opening talk, ma'am, but very motivational and innovative conversation. And I'm sure, like you said, that all the officers, they are going to introduce innovations in their place. And this program is just not for students or parents or teachers. It's for everybody, for principals, for school heads, for school leaders. And if you are interested in introducing innovations at your end in school administration, please don't be afraid of anything and take the initiative and spread it further to as many people as you can. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us and for giving us so much information regarding leading innovations in school administration.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you to all the viewers for watching this program. I'm sure you have liked it, and if in case you have missed it, please watch it on NCRT Official, our YouTube channel. So we are wrapping up our today's programs here, but tomorrow we'll come back again with more programs on more subjects, on more topics, and they will be for different classes as well. If you want to know the schedule, the timetable of our telecast programs, then you can visit our website, which is CIET or Swayam Prabha. Thank you once again. Have a great day ahead. Take care. Namaskar.